As Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, said, "Those who flow as life flows know they need no other force." Today, we're embracing that wisdom as our guide and as an acronym for eating well by adopting a food philosophy that flows. FLOWS. We experience 1,000 waking minutes on average every day. How are you spending yours? I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and you're listening to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I can't wait to connect with you here with practical ways to eat well, move daily, and be healthy, to optimize every waking minute you live for a happier, healthier life. Thank you for sharing some of your waking minutes with me today. Let's get started.
I'm saying yes to better days, yes. I'm on my way, yes. It's gonna be okay, yeah.
Hello, I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and you are here with me on 1,000 Waking Minutes, and I'm so glad you're joining me here today. Happy spring, and I hope that we have some good moments to share today. I have a basic tenet, a basic mantra that we live by, the eat well, move daily, be healthy. And like the word well that I've talked about in a previous episode and bring up from time to time when we're talking about eating well in particular, there's another word that I really, really love and use a lot, which is flow or flows, because I like the movement and I like the dynamic nature of it. And I also like the sort of calm that comes when I think of the word flowing, that it's sort of going along, meandering. It's not necessarily chaotic, but it may have bends and turns and all those different things. So today, I'm going to be talking about flows in a different context, but flow is one that for me is so soothing, and it's flexible and dynamic, as I mentioned, of the steady action forward. It's moving, so it's not blocked and it's not stagnant. Rivers flow into seas, words flow on a page if you're lucky. And when our bodies, our mind and body and our spirit are sort of in a state of balance, so to speak, our vital force energy, or chi, as some have called it, is said to flow freely. So from an Eastern perspective, eating well or eating with flow is about creating gentle ripples rather than tremendous waves of excess, such as calories or sugar or fat or volumes of food in general that suddenly flood our bodies. It's more about a constancy and avoiding maybe some of the drama that comes with ups and downs, like forgetting to eat all day and then feeling like I could eat that table right in front of me. A lot of us have come to almost crave that drama, going without food and overeating, a snack time and beyond, and we've all fallen into this at times, so it's not about perfection. But as you try to keep your body in a food flow and maybe a little bit more stable, you'll start to crave that instead. And then imagine a day where you just sort of cruise along without the drama of hunger or overeating. And it can actually feel so good to have that flow. You may not even recognize it in the beginning. It's just sort of like a day well lived, or you didn't have, yet one more decision to make, or it just sort of was an easier day. So I've also developed a flows that came to me years and years ago when I was sort of instructing on a very regular basis, doing classes multiple times a week and often repeating them 2 times within an hour or in a couple hours because of the nature of how we designed the programming when I was working as the head of nutrition at the Golden Door Spa. And I would be teaching about eating and food and nutrition, all kinds of topics about herbs and spices, about the garden, about, many things that we'll continue to talk about within my profession. And sort of dawned on me one day that there's a type of flows, an acronym that you could apply to your life, whether you're at like a health mecca farmer's market or even a convenience store. You could be at the big supermarket with tons of choices, or you could be at a little bodega. It could be something that you apply when you're eating dinner in the company of others with friends or your family, when you're out eating, or even when you're home. And it's sort of about choosing something, choosing along a course that flows. And because the word is really cool, it's a good way to remember also that balance is something that we can pursue. And that again, is not static, it's dynamic, just like our health and just like our lives. So, what does FLOWS stand for? Well, it stands for fresh, local, organic, whole, and seasonal. And there's some builds on that, and there's some flexibility within that. But I'm going to talk to you today about flows. This practice, sort of having a roadmap or a mantra or an acronym, especially one like flows, can allow you to have a practice to provide you with a handy mental checklist for shopping and meal planning. And it can help ensure that you eat well with healthful and nutritious foods. And it can also ensure that you pursue energy enhancing foods most of the time. So whether you're looking at a menu or choosing off a buffet, or you're stocking your own pantry or your office, cabinets or cupboards, if you tick off a few of the words, flows, you'll have a framework and you'll feel confident that you're making good choices most of the time. So again, FLOWS. And we're going to go in detail into each of these. And then what is a diet that flows? So when it comes to making easy decisions while cleaning up your diet, however the word may strike you, changing up your dietary choices, shifting your eating style, this can also be a handy acronym and a great bet. 5 letters, and they're simple to remember. They can spell out a foundation for eating well. So every day we navigate at least 200 food exposures, most of us, in 24 hours by some estimates. If you're out and about, the world, like micro decisions. You see a food, you see an advertisement for food, you see a word on a page. Not everything is about, is this going into my mouth? But we're getting food exposures constantly, and on average, up to 200 or more daily. So flows can help us throughout as well. It sort of distills and simplifies and provides some structure along with some fluidity, because that's the point of flows. So there are no absolutes here. It's not necessarily a strict set of rules. It's just something that I wanted to share with you today in this episode so that you can have something to be thinking about. And I would encourage you to, as you're thinking about these, as you're integrating this into your own thought process and what resonates with you, if what you relate to, how you want to choose it. But I would encourage you to think about aiming to get 2 or more of the flows met at every meal. So it's not about like, let's get them all on the plate all the time, but aiming for like sort of a tick list, again, a checklist. Are 2 or more represented at this meal, and even snacks, or throughout the day, if you think about the patterns of eating. So number 1 is F, and I said that's fresh. I also put in there flavorful, but let's get the acronym first. Fresh, also flavorful. You can let your feet guide you to the fresh produce section in your supermarket. You can be guided by the delicious looking foods, eating the rainbow. The fresh fruits and vegetables they can provide a sort of maximum matrix, maximum nutrients. They're beautiful. They've got the whole package. If they're a fiber source, they've got more of it. If they're a water source, they've got more of it. If they're antioxidants, they generally have more of it. Frozen, another F, is a second alternative, and it's a great backup plan. So F could be fresh, inspired by fresh, picked, and then frozen, because that's what happens. It's picked and preserved at peak ripeness and frozen if you have frozen vegetables or fruits that you purchase. In fact, even frozen fruits or vegetables, they can ensure that sort of freshness, even if they travel longer distances. So there's seasons where we may not be getting the seasonal best, and we'll get to seasonal soon, but you can keep some frozen berries and vegetables, some broccoli or spinach or string beans on hand, whether you got them fresh during the summertime or you grew them yourself, or if you buy them frozen, knowing that they were picked fresh and last frozen or frozen quickly when they were at the peak of ripeness, to ensure that you have that. So thinking fresh first, frozen second, and canned minimally. There's better canned options also, and you've seen the beautiful, probably, cans of fruits that are in their own fruit juices and that you can move through. But let fresh be your guide toward the produce, is what I'm getting to. So it can be the appearance that guides you. It can be the colorful foods. And of course, we know flavor. Flavor rules. That's like top notch. That's number one, even before any other health attribute that we may be seeking. So flavor, the thing that we'll eat and eat again in eating well, are foods that taste good to us. So thinking about this, that's F. And then we have L. I use L for local, and I also use it for love, things you love. So when you have a choice, look to support your local farmers and purchase local produce, nuts or grains and other food items. In the US, there's a dairy within 200 miles of almost every metropolitan area. Locally grown foods, locally produced foods, they don't have to be transported as far to the market. Local foods also reflect seasonal options. It sort of gets us refamiliarized with what is seasonal these days, because in a grocery store, you have all seasons represented 24/7 all year long now. And we also know that things tend to taste best when they come from like our area in the height of ripeness, the height of season, and local. And it supports the local economy too. So thinking of farmers markets and co-ops, we're going into that season. Some areas, I live in Southern California, so we have the benefit of the growing year round. But I recognize, having grown up in the Northeast and knowing a lot about the Midwest, that those are just coming up now, supporting farmers markets and co-ops and roadside stands. And even in the regular supermarkets now, there's a lot that will start labeling the local that's available. And of course, use your common sense when it comes to this too. Not all local items are available year-round, but it's more important to eat nutritious foods year-round than only doing local. So again, in flows, this is one guide, and also the idea of the foods that you love, the foods that you love that fit a health-inspired or health-promising life, so that you feel good, you feel a day well-lived and well-nourished. So embrace those local foods. O, flows, remember, FLO, organic. So I am talking about organic, and I'm going to have a caveat to this, because you don't always have to eat organic, but I think we should care about where our food comes from. And there's some amazing agriculture that's happening right now that is not technically called organic, and we'll get into that in a minute. But let organic be sort of a guidepost to, again, caring about where your food comes from, caring about people and planet, perhaps. And organic foods are generally foods that have been grown or raised without the use of synthetic pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, without the use of added synthetics or unnecessary use of, or preventative use of, antibiotics, for example. or fertilizers that have synthetic chemicals, as I mentioned before. Organic processed foods also must not contain artificial preservatives or colors or flavors. So let's face it, when we're not eating fresh, sometimes we're eating packaged foods. And not universally, but organic can be one of those benchmarks that can help you recognize foods that won't have those. It's one layer as you start reading the ingredient list. And no organic food is grown or handled using genetically engineered technology. So that's a sort of a bonus to knowledge more than whether it's right or wrong. But you can know if it's organic, that it is not also genetically engineered. Those go part and parcel. If it's organic, it cannot be genetically modified, genetically engineered. And the ingredients inside, if it's an organic food, cannot be that way. So until recently, it was sort of hard to know whether you're buying organic foods at all, let alone knowing what kinds of standards were being maintained. We do have a national organic program in the United States so that it helps consumers know if something's 100% organic or made with organic ingredients. And it helps us get over and be more cautious around sort of more vague labeling like natural. Natural, according to the USDA, means the product contains no artificial ingredient or added color or is minimally processed. But the food may contain some other things that you may not be interested in consuming, or similar or synthetic chemicals or otherwise. So natural can be confusing, but organic has a standard. It has a legal definition. Shopping organic can be a way also to support farmers who are making efforts in this direction. Getting the organic label, however, takes quite a long process, and it can be expensive for some farmers. So I would say that not all farmers even need the organic label, the official one. You can get to know them if you're interested, and it can be really fun to know what they use with their brains and technology to keep pests away, and their natural and conscientious processes that may be every bit as good as an organic method, but may not technically have gone through the organic processing and stamp of approval. But it's still, I like the word organic because it sort of allows us to be thinking toward this focus and carrying again how our food is grown and how our food is treated. So it's not a mandate, as I mentioned. It's a reminder to make choices based on the relationship of the quality of the food you choose. A lot of people will ask me, are they worth the price too? Some foods like berries, maybe fruits that are fragile or porous and can't be scrubbed, sometimes might be a good investment to buy organic, especially if you look at them and they're beautiful and you're ready to eat, and if they're affordable to you. Other foods like bananas or oranges that have skins, there are pesticides and herbicides that can be systemic that grow up through the soil into the food, but there's also topical pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides that are sprayed on. So if there's a peel and you peel it off, theoretically and in reality, you can be reducing some of that exposure on a conventional food. So these are all choices. It can be confusing at times, but I have to know. I mean, I've known many farmers in my life, and I value their contributions so much that farmers overall have their families and their customers in mind, and they do what they can to minimize the exposure to any other chemical on behalf of themselves, their employees, their family, also while looking at the yield and trying to maximize yield. So keeping in mind some of those things. Organic is a great thought guide. I know that among flows, this one may be the one that you sort of vacillate on a little bit. Maybe you've heard of different lists that are available, and I can go into those in another episode. But in general, the value of eating fruits and vegetables outweighs getting caught up in the affordability or whether to choose organic, but it can sort of guide us toward thinking about the quality of the food that we put in. Eating them, the produce that is, the fruits and vegetables, conventional or organic, always outweighs not consuming them at all. Next, we're at flow without a W. What's W? W is whole foods and whole grains. It's whole, fresh, local, organic, whole. Whole foods have much more to offer than more refined byproducts typically. When we consume a whole food, an apple, for example, you're getting the carbohydrate, the fiber, the antioxidants, you're getting everything packaged as Mother Nature intended it. You're getting these phytonutrients that actually protect them, the fruit or vegetable, from the sun exposure and the assaults, outside so that they can grow strong. It just so happens that we humans could take advantage of those in our bodies as well. So whole has to do with the whole food intact, and also some research about the food matrix. That those nutrients, the way the food is packaged, is on purpose, that there's synergies that happen, that things that happen by all those being there together. And that when we start extracting them and making them just nutrients, that maybe, just maybe, and some research is bearing this out over the last couple of decades, maybe there's some losses there as well. So it's not one or the other, but focusing toward whole. You think about a commercial applesauce versus an apple or apple juices. They certainly have a loss of certain nutrients. They're often very good still, in many ways. So it's not an all or nothing here, but a focus. Remember, this is a focus helping us have an acronym that can help guide us along the way. And then there's whole grains. Now, we are a family that enjoys our white rice. Yes, I just said that. Aplenty. It's part of our staple. I could talk at length, and I will at some point. Maybe we'll do a whole grain episode about white rice is not as problematic versus brown rice for not only some people, but for health in general. But it's one part of our diet. And most of the time, choosing whole grains gives you more. Look for quinoa and brown rice and barley and kamut. First of all, it adds variety. And not only variety, but variety brings extra types of nutrients, of pastas, of crackers, especially foods and packages. It's really good to be guided by the word whole grain, whole oats, etc. It actually adds a good amount of nutrition there. And when a grain is stripped or refined, it actually can lose not only some fiber, which most of us may have heard of or already know, but up to 90% of its micronutrients, especially things like commercial or store-bought breads at the grocery store and crackers. Choosing whole grain options, and the USDA and sort of the My Plate method is to make half of your grains whole on a daily basis, but certainly choosing where it makes sense, and then keeping your refined grains, maybe like a sourdough bread or your white rice, keeping those for why you enjoy them, when you enjoy them, how you enjoy them, because the rest of the time you're really choosing toward the whole grain. And finally, we've got seasonal. Seasonal for S. With S, I also bring sustainable and satisfying. And you can add those to the extent that you wish, but let's think seasonal. Eat with the seasons. When you eat a diet that flows, make an effort to know and participate in foods that do bring the seasonal into your life. Whether they're in season where you live, we all know that, a tomato from our area tastes best. Well, our area, I grew up in Connecticut. So in the summer, my tomatoes in Connecticut taste best. I remember that. Or apple pie or corn on the cob. Should have just said apple there. But corn on the cob, peaches, berries, things that are, in season, they always just really taste best and they bring you nostalgia. But now, with the seasons, a lot of things are available year round. But the in-season things just tend to taste best. And taste can be a guide to nutrients at times as well. Not only does it support our health, but also the local economy when you eat seasonally. And that sort of registers back to local that we talked about before. And satisfying. Satisfying is about energizing our bodies, soothing our emotions. and things that make us feel good as well. So take note of the foods that satisfy you. And not just satisfy you like, oh, yum, brain alert or brain sweetness or, oh, I just love this, but the comfort that they bring to bring you sustained good energy, for example, or focus during the day. You'll notice those tend to be the most nutritious foods too. So sustainable can be about sustained energy and sustained good nutrition. And of course, sustainable can be about the planet. And I think increasingly, we should care about our food and the sustainability of the foods that we choose and the whole picture, because we are a growing community, a growing population, and we want to be well fed, all of us, for time to come. So that's flows: fresh, local, organic, whole, seasonal. Those are the cues for you today. I'm going to do a second episode on flows and tell you just a little bit about the research in this area, about the food matrix, about synergies that I've talked about before, about how the whole pattern of eating. And just as a simple reminder, because I'm very keen to build in reminders for us on ways that we can be thinking about our waking minutes and reducing the decision fatigue that goes along with our health habits to make them more ingrained in our day-to-day. So that will come in a follow-up episode that I'm looking forward to doing for you next week. And as a way of just keeping this simple today, I really want you to start to put this into practice. Get to know the word flows. In fact, I encourage you, write it down somewhere and post it up. Post it up on your refrigerator, post it on a bulletin board, put it on a computer screen if you have your calendar sort of flashing on your screen to look at. Use it as something that you can start thinking about as you look at your plate, as you do your shopping, as you look in your pantry. Just take a look at that and aim to get 2 or more of flows met at each meal. Perhaps, and I'll encourage you to look and see where the farmers markets are and when they open. If in your area they're not open yet, take a look. This is a good week to do that. Perhaps take a look at the CSAs, the community supported agriculture. See if there's some boxes or half boxes, or if you can go in with a coworker or a neighbor if you don't think that you'll consume as much as a box would provide. It'd be a great way of sort of making it really fun part of your every week and your time at getting involved there. Flows is about being present. It's about being proactive, but not being perfect. So keep that in mind. This is a conscious approach of just saying, flows. Does my food flow? Adopt a food philosophy that flows, I guess is what I've said before. Fresh, local, organic, whole, and seasonal. And with that, we have flavor also. We have satisfying. We've got goodness in the foods that nourish us. So thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Please make a comment. Give us a 5-star rating on the podcast platforms. I'm so grateful you're here. Write in. And I'm eager to hear what you're up to and what you're working on as well, and what you're interested in, especially when it comes to making your waking minutes more nourishing toward a well-lived day. I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian. This is 1000 Waking Minutes, and until next time, be well. Thank you for tuning in to 1000 Waking Minutes. A huge thank you to our amazing collaborators, including our production and marketing teams, and Gabriela Escalante in particular. To the ultra-talented Beza for my theme music, my lifelong friend and artist, Pearl Price Photography and Design, to Daniel Ballantyne, Jen Nguyen, Joanna Powell, and of course my family, and everyone working tirelessly behind the scenes. And to you, our valued listeners, I so appreciate your support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a comment, writing a review, and giving 1000 Waking Minutes, that's us, a 5-star rating. And please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Please follow and stay connected at wendybazilian.com. And don't forget to share with your friends. Your support helps us grow and bring you more great content. Until next time, find some simple opportunities to optimize those 1,000 waking minutes each day.
I'm saying yes